So one of the passages that we've not read so far in any of our Christmas services is one from Luke's Gospel, Luke chapter 1, and we're going to read that this morning. You might be aware that at the beginning of the New Testament, there are four Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, each giving a slightly different perspective on the life of Jesus, which is something you'd expect, slightly different perspectives because they are from different people. One thing you will know if you've watched too many police dramas is that if you've got two people who've witnessed an event and they give identical accounts, then the chances are they've colluded. You would expect there to be variation in eyewitness accounts. The Gospels, they're written, as I say, by four different people, and so they bring their own personality, they bring their own style to the retelling of the story, and obviously they couldn't include everything, so they've had to pick and choose what am I going to put in and what am I not going to include. And so there are many things that Jesus said, there are many things that Jesus did that we don't know about, and the stories that we do have, there are lots of things, lots of details that we are not told, so there are lots of gaps that invite us to kind of fill them in. Each author was writing for a slightly different audience, and so they tailored their story with that audience in mind. So, for example, Matthew was writing for a predominantly Jewish audience, so they were really into the Old Testament, and so one of the things that Matthew did is he tries to make as many links between what Jesus was doing and what Jesus was saying to the Old Testament. So that's why Matthew has lots of Old Testament quotes, and he will put something like, this happened in order to fulfill what the prophet so-and-so said. If you were a Roman Christian, not from a Jewish background, you didn't read Hebrew, you'd never read the Old Testament, then you weren't as interested in those ties to the Old Testament. As I mentioned last Sunday at our carol service, only Matthew and Luke have anything at all about the Christmas story. And then they've only got a few paragraphs. If all you had was Mark's Gospel or John's Gospel, you would know nothing at all about the Christmas story. If all you had was Matthew's Gospel, you'd know about the angel visiting Joseph, and then you'd know about the visit of the Magi and the escape to Egypt, but nothing else. And so the other details come from Luke. Luke tells us about the angel visiting Mary, the census, the journey to Bethlehem, the shepherds, and Jesus being presented at the temple. I'm fairly sure that if you were an alien visiting Earth from outer space, and you visited a part of the world that was either Western or Christian influenced, then you would probably have the impression that Christmas is the most important festival in the year, in terms of what's on the television, what's in the shops, how long the shops have been gearing up for Christmas, all that kind of stuff, work parties, etc., that Christmas clearly is the most important festival. But the New Testament writers will say, two of them don't mention Christmas at all, and the two that do just have a few paragraphs. For the New Testament writers, this story is all focused on Easter, on Good Friday, when Jesus died, Easter Sunday, when Jesus came back to life. But it is Christmas Eve, so we're going to look at the Christmas story from Luke chapter 1, and I'm going to start reading at verse 26. So, Luke tells us, in the 6th month of Elizabeth's pregnancy, God sent the angel Gabriel to Nazareth, a town in Galilee, to a virgin pledged to be married to a man named Joseph, a descendant of David. The virgin's name was Mary. The angel went to her and said, "Greetings, you who are highly favored. The Lord is with you." Mary was greatly troubled at his words and wondered what kind of greeting this might be. But the angel said to her, "Do not be afraid, Mary. You have found favor with God. You will conceive and give birth to a son, and you are to call him Jesus. He will be great and will be called the Son of the Most High. The Lord God will give him the throne of his father David, and he will reign over Jacob's descendants forever. his kingdom will never end." "How will this be?" Mary asked the angel, "since I am a virgin?" The angel answered, "The Holy Spirit will come on you, and the power of the Most High will overshadow you. So the Holy One to be born will be called the Son of God. Even Elizabeth, your relative, is going to have a child in her old age, and she who was said to be unable to conceive is in her 6th month. For no word from God will ever fail." "I am the Lord's servant," Mary answered. "May your word to me be fulfilled." Then the angel left her. And we're going to think a little bit about that reading later on in our service. So as was kind of hinted at in that little humorous video that we watched a few minutes ago, quite a bit of the chaos and the busyness around Christmas is self-inflicted, but not all of it. We either try and do too much, or there are things that we should say no to that maybe we don't because we don't want to be a jerk and everyone will hate us. Or maybe we just set unrealistic expectations. Where are you? About what Christmas is supposed to look like. And then we get frustrated when the Christmas that actually happens doesn't look like the Christmas that we had in our mind's eye. And that image of the perfect Christmas is often influenced by the media, by Christmas films that we watch, or by advertising. Our Advent themes, once again this year, have been hope and love, peace and joy. And these are all themes that are right at the heart of the Christmas story. You've got the hope that Jesus, this baby that has been born, is the fulfillment of all those prophecies that so many people, when he was born, were waiting for, they were longing for. That in this baby, are we going to see the fulfillment of these promises that God has made throughout history? When the angels come and speak to the shepherds, they talk about peace. John tells us that God's love is the motivating force behind the Christmas story. And then, again, the angels talking to the shepherds, they say that this news is great joy for all people. And so these themes of hope and peace and joy and love are right at the heart of the Christmas story. But I think sometimes we allow ourselves to be molded and shaped by the world's influences as to what Christmas hope or Christmas peace or love or joy should actually look like. And we start to think about that perfect Christmas image in our heads. Maybe the perfect Christmas image is that we're all sat around in the lounge, we're surrounded by family, no one is arguing. There's Christmas music playing in the background, we're full from a lovely lunch, but we're not so full that we feel slightly sick. There is the hope and anticipation of the present still waiting to be unopened under the tree. There's a fire going in the corner. And we start to fall into the trap of thinking that if we don't have those things, then the hope and the peace and the love and the joy of Christmas has somehow passed us by. Or to put it another way, when we think about the hope and the peace and the joy and the love, what we think that God is promising us, when he promises us those things, we think he's promising us that something that looks a little bit like the perfect Christmas. He's talking about giving us things on the outside that will make us feel better on the inside. Instead of thinking that when we talk about Christmas hope, peace, joy, and love, we're talking about God doing something on the inside that will be there no matter what is going on on the outside. Because that first Christmas story, it's messy, it's chaotic, it's gritty, and it's dark. We read earlier on that Mary learned that she was highly favoured, that she'd found favour with God. And yet she was still going to be caught up in the confusion and the rumour and the speculation and the accusations and the emotional roller coaster and the pain that accompanied the announcement of her pregnancy. She was still going to have to leave her home and travel 60 or 70 miles from Nazareth to Bethlehem whilst heavily pregnant on a whim of the Roman emperor. Along with Joseph, she would experience being turned away as they tried to find somewhere to stay. And Mary had to give birth to her first child in a place where the animals were kept. And yet, through it all, Mary chose to put her trust in God. And there are all kinds of reasons as to why Christmas might be hard. Maybe a bereavement. Often Christmas time, it brings back those feelings and awareness of loss as we are aware of those people that no longer share Christmas with us. There's a space around the dining table, as it were. Maybe it's financial insecurity. That at this time of year there is so much pressure put on people to get this or to get that or to spend this and to spend that. Or there's maybe worry about what the coming year will bring. Maybe there are health worries. Maybe there are family tensions and broken relationships that we are maybe more aware of at this time of year. One of the things that advertisers try and do is to convince us that things on the outside can make a difference to what's going on the inside. Next time you're watching the adverts, if you're watching television at all, obviously not BBC, but if you're watching anything else over Christmas, pay attention when you're watching the adverts to see what it is that they are actually trying to sell you. Because they're rarely trying to sell you a physical product. If you actually watch the adverts and think about it, what they are trying to do is they're trying to sell you a dream. They're trying to sell you, if you buy this, then you're going to feel like this. Or if you buy this, then it's going to make your life like this. So they're not simply trying to sell you a physical product, they are trying to sell you a dream. When the Gospels talk about hope and peace and joy and love, they are not talking about that comfortable Christmas scene, the Christmas afternoon where everyone is getting on in the front room. They're talking about knowing the presence of God, whatever kind of situation we are in. Whatever we are going through, knowing the hope and the peace and the joy and the love that only God can bring. Because Christmas is only a small part of a much bigger story. A story, as the gospel writers know, was headed to the cross and it was headed to Easter Sunday. It's not just about Jesus' birth. It's about his life. It's about his death. It's about his resurrection. And because of those things, we can know peace. We can know God's presence with us in the darkness and in the chaos of Christmas. We can trust him for whatever the new year will bring. And we can look forward to a day when Jesus will come again and when everything will be put right and we will spend forever with him. We're going to pray and then we're going to sing.